Hello and welcome. I'm Gabriella Ferenczi, founder of a language training company called ProLingua Global, and I'm a language coach, German and Hungarian language coach. And I'm really proud and really excited to welcome Gabriella Kovács here, who is also an accredited language coach, and we would be talking about all things languages, language coaching, language training, and what she's been doing in this sort of arena so far. But first of all, a couple of words about why we are talking about this. I've been following Gabi's work for quite a while, and I'm really fascinated by what she's doing in terms of language coaching and raising awareness of this really interesting and exciting area of language teaching. And I would love to welcome Gabi. Gabi is based in Hungary. And I can't wait to welcome here to London to speak at one of our events, which is a regular, relatively newly launched monthly networking event called Language Professionals Networking. It's a London event, and lots of different language professionals attend this social gathering every single month. And we launched it relatively recently in August. And ever since then, we have been running continuously and rather successfully. And part of this event is a 30-minute insightful presentation talk by a language professional who speaks on all sorts of things that concerns languages, cultures, business, approaches of language teaching, voice acting, speech therapy, and all sorts of things. And I'm really excited to say that Gabi is going to join us in spring 2019. So first of all, a few words now about Gabi herself. Gabi is an accredited language coach and a business communication trainer, teacher trainer more recently, I think. And she works tirelessly on introducing language coaching to organizations as well as to teachers who are open to this more alternative approach to, and perhaps more holistic approach to language teaching. Gabi, would you mind introducing yourself to the viewers, to the listeners, and explain who you are and what your mission is about?
Okay, so I'm Gabriella Kovács, and yes, I am based in Hungary, and I've been working with teachers for quite a long while, actually. I was a mentor for Alte University in Hungary quite a long time ago, and then I had various situations working with clients, with students in, I don't know, secondary schools, universities. I was working with language schools, and what I realized was that the things that were working for me were a little bit different to what I'd learned at university. And then I had the opportunity to do the language coaching course through which I became an accredited language coach. And it just really sparked something. It ignited something which was really, I haven't really looked back since, and it's a really exciting journey. And I really wanted to develop a bit further. And I realized that there was actually very little where I could continue learning about language coaching. So I apply a lot of coaching framework in my work, and I use it to support the language students that I have, the clients, and we work together using this coaching framework. So I've kind of personalized a lot of coaching elements, which is really, really enjoy putting together coaching tools to support my clients. I've been working with various organizations here in Budapest, and from the feedback that I've got, I think it's quite successful. So it's always a lot of enjoyment for me to see that it actually works. So in practice, so it's not just a theoretical thing, and there's a lot of hype about coaching, that all kinds of workshops how it works, but when you actually see it in practice, it's just so much fun. And it really supports in a much deeper way than teaching can. So that's how it's different in a way.
Of course, that makes sense. But I would love to explore first what brings you into this whole languages and language teaching arena. Would you mind telling us about your language background and why you chose language teaching as a profession?
Wow, okay. Well, that goes a long way back, because it was kind of a given for me, because I was born in Australia and I lived there for a number of years. And my parents being Hungarian of origin, we moved to Hungary. They moved back, and I found a second home for myself. And it was partly because of the reactions that people had when, you know, I was speaking Hungarian. I had a very strong Australian accent, obviously, so I couldn't really pronounce the words properly. Sorry, my vocabulary was quite limited. And as a child, I experienced that people turned to me for help with their English. I mean, it was just starting to spread in Hungary. To learn English was a big thing. And as a teenager, I was already teaching, so I was doing one-to-one private lessons with students. So I gained a lot of experience there in supporting students, and I always had a very practical approach to teaching. Which meant that we were talking a lot, and I really got involved in my students as people. So I think it's very difficult to separate it. Even when you're in a class, I was teaching 20, 30 people at college or in secondary school. A lot of teachers I hear complain that the groups are very big. But for me, that's an added plus, because it means there's so much that you can do with the dynamics within the class. So there are so many different formations that you can make use of to get them talking, to get them to interact with each other in different ways. And I think part of teaching is always getting to know your students better. And actually coaching can up that. So it can add something. It's another dimension, and if I have the possibility to talk about case studies later on, then you'll see how it will be completely different dimension. So that's how I got involved with teaching originally, and because I found that it was very not only fun, but it also empowered me in a way, and my students also. I thought I should continue in this field, and I then went to Teachers College, did my BEd and then my MA at ERTA, which is it's the biggest university in Budapest, and I was asked to do my PhD, and I declined that because I thought that was just too theoretical for me, and I didn't really feel like it was part of my journey then. And actually, since then, I've done quite a lot of studying and looked into different kinds of theories related to language teaching and coaching, but just not in the form of any. So it's not formal education that I've chosen, but various courses, talking with people. So the kind of informal learning or invisible learning, whatever you want to call it, which is a different kind of way of learning. And I think it's much more something that applies to people nowadays. The way that people think, the way that people interact, the way learning is taking place is completely different to what formal education can actually provide. And this is once again something where I think coaching can provide quite a lot of support, because the way that people are learning language is also changing. So we can bring in ICT, so all the kind of technical applications and websites, whatever you've got, and you can start working with those, but it's still not going to provide the personal touch that, I mean, interacting with a human being is what's going to push language learning into the field, into that area where you really want to be. Yeah. So you can't really use an application to give your very best at a negotiation or at a meeting. It's just not going to happen. It can help you with the vocabulary, so that the usual stuff. It can give you some support with how you're going to approach your grammar choices, like is it present perfect, is it past simple, those kind of is that you have to make when you're learning a language, for example, English. But when you're there and you're thinking about, well, how am I going to face my boss here when my English is not as good as his? That's not going to be something that you can work with an application or without some other sort of support. This is also something that coaching can help you with.
I couldn't agree more, and I can certainly relate to all of what you've been saying. You do know that I'm not a qualified coach as such, or not an accredited coach, but I've been certainly very open to this approach. And about 2 years ago or so, I felt that I had to express somehow that what I'm doing with my clients is a lot more than actually teaching, because this is exactly what I've been seeing, what you're explaining, like confidence issues, how to just go out there and really use the language, even if, you know, I'm on my own and I'm the only one who doesn't speak the language, you know, as a native speaker. So there are lots of different issues that we had to tackle with my clients, and also on the other hand, when it comes to like the actual sessions or the actual lessons that are taking place, I found that, you know, after a while, there is this, when trust is established and chemistry really works between trainer, tutor, teacher, call it whatever, or coach, and the student or client, what I found is that, like, organically the whole lesson became a great chat on something that is important or relevant to the client. And we were just talking about that in the target language. And it became like, for me as the teacher or coach, I was just asking questions, and I allowed the client to speak, to see what they are up to, what they had on their mind. And I just, and without really noticing, the language skills started to develop. And it was kind of like I don't know, like an added benefit of, you know, being able to chat and have a great conversation on something, and then, you know, improving your language skills at the same time. So I felt the need to somehow express that this is more than, you know, just me being the teacher who knows it all and tries to, you know, impart knowledge to the client, because I found that it was actually almost the other way around. I learned exactly as much about, you know, finance and lots of different things, and the client themselves, as they learned from me about the language. So it was really a reciprocal process that I really enjoyed, and the client enjoyed as well.
Yeah. I would add to this one or two things that I've experienced also. And once again, it's something that I can totally agree with this whole process that you've talked about, because coaching is so much a partnership based process. So you just don't have that kind of hierarchy that you have in teaching, that, you know, you've got the teacher, the know-all, as you said, and then you're going to impart all that knowledge and going to push it into their brains, and thereby they're going to somehow understand all the stuff that's coming in towards them, and then they're going to use it, because it's just not going to happen. And especially in language, there are so many possibilities for someone to create mental blocks, certain kind of beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, which are going to get them stuck at a certain point. And it doesn't really matter what level you are at. I was, let me give you an example. I was at a teachers, I was training teachers. I was doing a workshop at a university last week. and I asked someone to volunteer. And one of the teachers volunteered for a 15-minute brief little coaching. And the issue that came up was that she was learning Spanish, a beginner, and it was not working for her. It was just very overwhelming. Somehow there was an issue with the teacher. And of course, when I'm coaching, I always try to focus on the person and not on the topic itself. So if we start talking about what is going on with the teacher, I'm not really focusing on the client. So I said, okay, I understand that you've got an issue with the teacher who is not, you know, talking too fast and expecting too much. But what is it that you have in your past experience learned from learning other languages? And she said, well, I'm always very active in when I'm learning a language, and here in these lessons, I'm kind of distracted and passive, and it just gets worse as the lesson goes on. And I asked, well, what is it that seems to be distracting you? And she said, well, I never thought about it, but in these classes, I'm sitting at the back, and usually at university or in any other learning situation, I'm sitting at the front. And she was like, oh my God, I mean, I've just got to sit up front because then I'm going to be more in focus. I'm going to ask questions more really, and I just kind of stay in the flow of the lesson. And she was so grateful, and it was just a revelation for her, really. And it was really, really satisfying, and it just gave me so much. And it was really nice to see for her to share this in front of, I don't know, 20 other university students. It was really great. So coming back to how coaching can support, it's this partnership. It's accepting as a teacher or coach that you don't know what's going to happen 2 minutes from now. And for many teachers, language teachers, that can be really scary because we've got our frameworks, we've got our curriculum, syllabus, we've got our lesson plan, we've got everything planned. And it kills the whole process. It doesn't, as a coach, I don't prepare. Obviously, I do. I think through the process. I kind of know what to expect, but I never underestimate what is actually going on in the client's head. You were talking about how much you also learn when you are in a coaching process or training process with a client. I always start when I've got a group of clients. I always start by drawing a tree on the whiteboard or flip chart, whatever, and I say, why do you think I drew this tree? And they come up with a lot of great ideas. It symbolizes the course, or it symbolizes their organization or whatever. And I say, okay, I'm going to write 1 or 2 labels, and I'd like you to finish what's going on. And at the roots, I always write your knowledge base. That's the fundamental, it's the basic thing that we always build on when we're working together with clients. They have that knowledge.
Exactly.
Their knowledge of themselves, their knowledge of their organization, their knowledge of their profession. That's all something that I, as a coach, build on. I can't work without them bringing that into the class.
Yeah.
And from then on, we're going to build a stem. There's going to be the trunk, which is going to be the core basics of the course itself that we start. And then you're going to have the branches and the leaves, and those are going to be all the competencies and all the skills and all the extra things that they will grow. And that's always a realization for them. It's like, oh, okay, so it's a completely different approach to their learning. So that's a little bit about how I work with clients.
How you approach the whole story with clients specifically. But
Yeah.
who do you actually work with these days? Because you do coach one-on-one, and you also work with teachers. So you do teacher training as well. You do business communication. So who do you actually work with, and how?
Well, I'm freelance, but I'm also head language coach of a of a corporate language training company and a kind of language school, and we worked together, and I put together a language coaching project for them, which enabled us to put together a training project which has coaching elements in it. And basically I'm building that portfolio with their clients, which is very exciting stuff, because it means that I have access, so to say, to high profile clients, which is always very exciting, because the thinking of a leader, of an executive is always more different to somebody who, I don't know, walks in from the street and says, look, I need a language coach because I'm struggling with the issues that I have. And of course, that's also very exciting, but sometimes you get some very rare gems. And for example, I'm working now, I will be working with a company who approached me, and that will be very, very exciting, because we'll be working together 5 one-on-ones. So that will be all in one organization. So that's always exciting. So there's always some kind of reverberation between the processes, but also they are very individual, and obviously they're very specific to that one person. So I'm looking forward to that. And the teachers, sorry, the teachers, I work with the teachers through my own network of, I mean, I got to know quite a lot of teachers in the past few years, and things just kind of sprung from the discussions that we had. And I thought, well, I think I could support them in a way. And somebody says, well, why don't you do a course? And I said, well, I don't know, I don't really have anything in mind. And I kind of sat down, and in a few days I put together my first language coaching course for teachers, and it's kind of grown since then. And it's also, I mean, I keep using the word exciting, but it's I'm very enthusiastic about the whole thing. I work together with a colleague of mine who is at the most. There was a period when we were working together as teacher trainers. That was also a wonderful experience. We were learning from each other and also providing support to teachers. And there's always 2 pieces of feedback which come back from teachers. And it doesn't really matter what sort of teacher you are. So you can be a corporate trainer, you can be working in public schools, you can be a private teacher, you know, so all walks of all areas of teaching. 2 things come back. One thing is it's so difficult to keep your silence. So when you ask a question, or when you see that the student or the client is thinking, to stop yourself from, you know, having that teacherly, okay, let me explain this again. Let me give you an example. Let me tell you what you need. And then the other thing is not giving. So you don't come in with all the knowledge that you have. I mean, I know as a teacher that you have all that knowledge. I have that knowledge. I think I've got quite a lot of stuff in my head, but restraining from putting it out into that I don't know, that space that you have between you and the student, and just keeping that open, because that's when they're going to come forward with their own ideas and they're going to open up. And once that happens, I think that's one of the magic moments in coaching, when they realize that they can, because nobody's going to push them down and give them advice, tell them what to do, because we're in a partnership. It's not me telling them what to do. It's us. We're in the same boat. We're kind of, you know, we've both got oars and we're just going to start paddling.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's it.
Fascinating to listen to it. What is, like, is there anything else you haven't mentioned but you think is important to emphasize about the approach itself, about language coaching as opposed to training or teaching? Is there something else we should mention before we move on?
I think that one thing when I'm talking to HR professionals, or I don't know, someone who is really keen on coaching but doesn't really know what it is you have this, ROI, this return on investment thing. And I think with coaching, it's completely different, the approach to what kind of value you can add to a learning process than with teaching. Because with teaching, it's like, okay, you're going to increase the level. You're going to get from, if we're looking at this European framework, you're going to get from B1 to B2, from B2 to C1, whatever. It's a very linear kind of framework. And of course, the communication skills are going to get better because the grammar and the vocabulary and the, I don't know, the basic professional panels are going to get better because we're going to practice a lot and we'll do lots of situations, which obviously is fine, but very often the issue is not grammar or vocabulary based. Right. And that, I think that's the area, that's the added value of coaching, because we're going to be able to provide support for a student, for a client. For example, if they've got they've got a presentation that they have to give, or there's a pretty high-notch meeting that they have to attend, or I don't know, conference, whatever, conference call. And what's going to happen is that the client is going to feel very stressed, and a teacher can't really do anything with stress. They can say, well, relax, let's just practice it again, and let's learn over and over again the vocabulary items, the panels, and practice it. But what they're not looking at is all the external or internal issues around the situation itself. Like, what would help you to step out of a comfort zone without reaching a panic zone? Yeah. Where can we find some kind of balance? What is it that can help you to feel more relaxed in that situation? How can you manage upwards? How can you represent yourself without devaluing yourself? So quite a lot of questions come up concerning the personality of the client. And sometimes, sometimes there are tears. So you get to that point when they just feel, okay, I'm just so lost. And then you kind of help them and support them to reach another level of I think, understanding themselves a bit better. So language coaching is a lot about self-awareness and understanding what sort of ways they can find to support themselves in a way.
Very interesting and very fascinating to listen to all this, and I can totally relate, and I'm so happy that you are going to join us in spring. And would you mind just telling us a little bit about what you are going to prepare, because you will come along to one of our events where you can just share some wisdom and share some nuggets with the audience who are attending just a 30 minutes talk. But we are also preparing workshops for those who are more interested in learning a little bit more about this interesting concept.
Yeah, right. So first of all, there would be this language professional networking event where I would go, and I just kind of give a short talk about the things that we've touched here, but in a more structured form. So I talk about the specific differences and similarities between language coaching, language teaching. So what the different focuses are and what areas are very similar. I mean, obviously there are a lot of similarities because they're all language based, language learning based, but how teaching approaches learning and how coaching approaches learning, there will be a lot of differences there. So I would definitely talk about that. And if there's time in a very short period, I would really like to coach somebody. That's always the thing. So it always works wonders, because I mean, you can be talking about coaching for so much, and for me that was the big breakthrough also when I actually saw someone coaching live. So there was a coaching demonstration, and I was like, wow, I want to do this. This is just so great. If I could do this with my students, with my clients, but it's a completely different depth. So it does take a lot of training, obviously. But I think the first step could be some sort of fundamentals or basics workshop, which I would be very happy to provide. So that would also be part of the program. So I'd love to invite everyone to come and take part in that, because it usually works very well. So there's very little theory about what coaching is and how it works, and how it can be applied in the classroom or in the training room, whatever. And then we go through the tools, how the questioning technique, the active listening skills work. And you would be going away with a lot of practical stuff, which means that you would be taking away loads of coaching tools, which are the equivalent of language teaching exercises. So there would be a lot of stuff that you can just take out of your toolkit, your toolbox, and you can start applying at the beginning of a course, during a course, when you're finishing a course. So kind of it can be the assessment evaluation. It can be, if I'm stuck with a student, what can I do? And you would have some practical ideas that you can just take out and start using. So that's kind of what I'm asking everyone to join me for. So I hope that would be very useful and very relevant for your clients, for your students, because that's what the whole thing is about, to create a new level of relevant learning for your students.
For our students, for our clients, and at the same time, it's such a rewarding experience for us, teachers, trainers, coaches. It's a fantastic process and a fantastic approach. And I can't wait to have you here. Well, thank you very much for your time for now. And let's get back to this in spring 2019. Once we have got the exact dates, we will let the audience know about it.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the interview, Gabi. Thank you.
Thank you.